Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Uh, we will be beginning, I guess, shortly with Group 8. And I wonder if the group members of Group 8, are you all present? Uh, can you let me know that you're here and let me hear from you first?
Hello.
Hello, Cheng Ji Yun, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Hello.
Yun, just ask you, how do you pronounce your English name? Rainy?
I think I prefer Renee.
Renee. Okay, Renee. All right, I'll remember.
Thank you.
And let's see, Xu Ying Ying.
Yes, Professor here.
Hello, hello.
Um,
And Kwok Lok Yu.
yes, I'm here.
Okay. And Eunice.
Hi.
And none of you are on camera. Do you mind to right now, not necessary, when you're after the presentation, it'd be great to be able to see you, all right? When but the presentation we'll have shortly. And Michelle. Is Michelle here? Are we missing somebody?
She's here.
No, I don't see you. And I don't hear from you. Okay, all right, good. All right. So are you ready, Group 8, to start your presentation and to share it with the rest of us?
Yes.
Okay, so Renee, will you be the one sort of hosting it, or?
Yeah.
Okay, so Renee, I'll turn it over to you, and for the next 20 minutes, we'll be hearing from your group, okay?
Okay.
All right, take it over.
Okay. Can everybody see it?
I can see it fine.
Okay. Then we will start now.
Okay, yes, great.
Can you hear the audio?
No.
No. Ooh. Let's see. Stop the share first. Okay. I'll try it again.
Hello, we are Group 8.
Can you hear now?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I will start now.
Great, thank you.
We are responsible for the analysis of abstract 8. This is our content page. In the course analysis, we have highlighted the verbs in yellow and the embedded course in blue. After our analysis, we have a total number of 8 courses in the test. Each course is made up with different number of subcourses, and for each subcourse, a verb will be presented. Next, in our analysis, we also found 4 embedded courses. The first one is located in course 2C to course 2E, and these 3 courses as a whole modify the previous noun unit. The second embedded course is course 3boy. This is used to modify the previous noun phrase grammaticalized form. Also, we found 2 non-defining relative causes. In course 1boy and course 3boy, the relative pronoun which is located in the course initial position. However, these 2 causes are not embedded because of the use of the preceding comma. The comma signals that both of these relative causes are just giving general and additional information about the nouns. Furthermore, the third embedded cause is cause 5C, which is used to modify the previous noun phrase, no specific linguistic means. Finally, the fourth embedded clause is clause 7D. It's used to modify the preceding noun phrase equivalents in other languages for the units of one language.
This is the table that we have generated for transitivity. As we can see, most of the processee types are material and relational. And here is the second part of the text. Through this table, we have discovered some pattern. First, in clause 3-6, most of the processee is relational, and the ERO is using the third person pronoun as the doer is giving out example of the language. Second, in clause 7-8, mainly use material processee and the use of we, the second person pronoun, as the main doers, since writer is referring to the point of view of some examples.
So let's move on to part C, the clause-level logical structure, where we compare the paratexts versus the hypotexts. From our analysis on the logical structure, it can be observed that out of 9 logical structures, 5 occur as paratexts and 4 occur as hypotexts. Paratexts accounted for almost 60% of the logical structure, while hypotexts only accounted for about 40%. Therefore, we can observe that there are slightly more paratexts than hypotexts in this academic abstract. Usually, academic articles have more hypotexts than paratexts, but this is only an abstract. Therefore, we might conclude that the writer is trying to grab the reader's attention and laying a roadmap to his article below by using a less complex structure like paratexts, which fit into the context of an academic abstract. Moreover, as for the function, the majority of the function is to elaborate. About 60% of the function here is elaboration. For instance, there are extensive uses of elaborations which can be seen in the uses of examples. The second most used function is extension, which can be seen in the use of causal relationships in the abstract. These two functions can help the writer give explanations to his points. From our analysis on the logical structure, it can be observed that
in this graph, we are looking at the logical relations between clauses. As you can see, there are two main parts. The first one, which are clause 1 to 3, serves as a background to the main clause 4 to 8. At a higher level, the logical relations are mainly background or elaboration. However, at a lower level, the clauses are in contrast. This is a more detailed graph showing the rhetorical structure and relations within the clauses. Apart from the ones we've mentioned before, there are use of condition between the subclauses in clause 7 and the use of purpose in clause 8. They will be explained in details in part 2 of our analysis.
For mood, it is about enact social relationship and how the use of language related to individuals. There are 3 mood types, which are declarative, interrogative, and the imperative. The orange one is representing subject and the green one is finite verb. And these are some subject and finite verb that we found in the clause. As you can see, in most of the clause, the writer is giving out information. And based on the placement of subject and finite verb, the mood type of this text is declarative.
For modality, modal auxiliaries are not frequently used in this abstract. There are only three modals: can't, may, would are spotted in clause 3 and 4. These modal auxiliaries can show and express the certain attitude of the author in explaining the points in clause 3a and clause 4a. As this is an abstract of an academic article, its main purpose is to state facts and information, but not to tell people what to do or what not to do. So modal auxiliaries are not frequently used in this abstract. For theme structure, the abstract is in mainly textual theme and topical theme, and no interpersonal theme is observed. So it does not enact social relationships, but only to convey information. Topical theme is highlighted in purple and textual in yellow, and there is one displaced theme in clause 2b, as there is the subject following the circumstance in each language. And there is the textual theme and topical theme for clause 4 to 8. In this part, topical themes are mostly pronouns, personal pronouns like we, it, and demonstrative pronouns, this. After analyzing the theme of the abstract, we can observe the pattern of the thematic progression. Clause 2 and 3 are in linear thematic progression. Clause 2b is the new information and clause 3a is the old information referring to clause 2b. Clause 4 to clause 7 are in linear thematic progression. Clause 7a, these observations summarizes 4a, 5a, and clause 6. Clause 4 and clause 5 are in continuous thematic progression. Demonstrative pronoun this is continuously used. Lastly, clause 7 and clause 8 are in continuous thematic progression. Three pronouns we are continuously used as theme.
Now I will show you some examples on the use of cohesion devices that contribute to the cohesiveness of the text. First is the use of pronoun to refer to previous appear nouns. For instance, in clause VA, the noun phrase grammatical lines formed reoccurred in clause VC, however is replaced by the pronoun they. Also, there is the use of ellipses in the text. For instance, we can look at cause 2 boy to cause 2e. The phrase there are units that speaker use is not repeated before the to infinitive in cause 2e. Even though this phrase is left out, the sentence is still comprehensible. This sort of syntactic reduction contributes to the cohesion, efficiency, and compactness of the text. Furthermore, the next example is a lexical cohesion device, which is the use of repetition. In clause 1a, the word pragmatic firstly appears, and then is restaged again by the writer in the later clauses by direct repetition or with a slight change in the part of speech. Lastly, by comparing our Part A analysis, we found a pattern that coexists in both the transitivity and the theme table. For instance, in clause 7 boy to clause 8a, The choice of the topical theme in the theme table is mostly the pronoun we, and in the same area, the choice of the ER word in the transitivity table is mostly we too. This repeated choice of pronouns create a patterning that also contributes to the cohesiveness of the text.
The conjunctions establish the relationship between two continuous clauses of the text. For instance, here in clause 3a to 3d, the usage of conjunctions because, which, and so that help link two clauses together, which helps build the coherence of what the writer is establishing and move his point on, which help build the architecture of the whole text. In this slide, clauses are grouped together in terms of theme, cohesion devices, and the nature of the text, which is an abstract. The first three clauses are grouped together because there is a continuum in theme, indicated by the reference word such and these. It is the same for clause 4 to 7. The conjunction, on the other hand, in clause 6 may seem to signal a change of theme or create a contrast, but it is also part of the observations that is mentioned in the beginning of clause 7. Therefore, clause 4 to 7 is a continuous theme. Clause 8 stands alone as it states the purpose of the abstract. Having a closer look at three French discourse markers and their possible equivalent in German. Clause 1 to 3 serves as a background that leads to the final clause. The writer also makes use of the logical relations such as condition or purpose to illustrate the current problem of the targeted issue and state this purpose for their academic journal. This fits into the nature of an abstract. This is the rhetorical structure we have arrived after the analysis of abstract 8.
Thank you. Thank you, Group 8. Very well presented. I liked the summation at the end of the presentation in which you sort of brought everything together and explained how the patterns that you had noticed earlier contributed to the architecture and what you identified as the coherent structuring of the text. That was very good. I did have a question about when during the discussion about theme and specifically with the repetition of this, there's one slide and it was who was doing the presentation on theme?
Yes, Professor. I'm doing the theme part. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you go back to the slide? Is it possible to go back to the slides? And there was during the presentation on theme, you indicated that it was new information.
Yes.
When you put this, I was a bit surprised that you indicate this is the case. So in what sense did you consider it to be new? Because usually it would have been referring to this is the case. What is this?
Because I was summarizing clause 4 to clause 7 as a part. So I consider clause 4, 5, and 6 as the new, so they can be summarized as these observations in clause 7. So I consider it as new information, but not referring to the previous clause.
Okay, so but you don't mean it as in the sense of this is when you talk about this, it's referring to old information, right? So because when you say this is the case, what is the case? It's what you've talked about before. The idea being that this was, I mean, a good illustration of thematic progression, right? Because obviously something had been mentioned before, then this was following up with it and as a kind of reference to it, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I was wondering if you thought this was new information. What you mean is that what is contained in those clauses subsequently is the new information, right?
Yes, that's what I mean.
I see. Okay, that's why I was just a bit confused by that. But
Sorry for the confusion.
no, 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 no. I just needed to clarify it. That's all.
Thank
And otherwise, it was a very, as I said, very good presentation, and I really liked the summation at the end. And what I did also appreciate was, and this is helpful in the sense that you don't cover sort of an introduction to what is theme, and sort of that is really unnecessary. You don't need to, and you didn't sort of give introduction to the basic concepts. You got right into the analysis and presented the analysis and noticed the patterns and then summed it up at the end. That's exactly how it should be done. So well done, group, and thank you very much. One last question. What did you think of the abstract? Anybody? Clear? Easy to
It's a-
analyze? What did you feel?
I think we didn't ever look at text in such a level that it versus kind of really hard. Although it's like only 8 clauses, but they have different variation in terms of how we group them together, how we should look at the text, how should we look at the transitivity, the theme, the reference and stuff. So we were surprised because it's more paratactic than we thought it should be. But at the same time, if we look at the meaning, like the theme, it is very clear that it should be paratactic, since he's talking about a rather difficult topic, which is discourse. Not everyone understand what discourse is, but you just sum it up very simply, stating the issues and then stating the purpose, and that's it.
Yeah, no, that was, and it was an interesting observation. It can be that that's because when people put an abstract together, they sort of take from this and this and this and this from their text and sort of put it all together in the end and sort of string it together, the basic ideas that were put in the paper. So that might explain it to some extent. But it was an interesting observation. But in all, I felt that the text itself, the way it's written, is sort of, there's a lot of conjunctions, as you mentioned, that sort of really guide the reader through it. And sort of from that standpoint, I think the analysis would have been easier from the standpoint that the conjunctions would have helped too. But very good observations, very well presented. Thank you, Group 8.
Thank you, Professor.
Okay. Okay, so that's it from Group 8. Thank you. And let's see how we're doing on time. The next group was to be at 12:40. We're quite ahead of time, so we do have time. Group 2, are you all here? Group 2. Let's see who's in Group 2.
Yes, I'm here, and my group mate grade is Chelsea.
Hello.
Oh, hello. Hi.
Hello.
I'm just taking a look at my list here. So let's just run through the names, and who do we have? Can you introduce yourselves?
I'm Annie Lam Pui Shan.
Okay, let me just, if you don't mind, let me add your English name in here. Okay, Annie, yes. And who else do we have here?
I'm Chen Hiu Yang, Chelsea.
Okay, Chelsea, thank you. And who else?
Hi, I'm Vicky.
Vicky. Yeah, okay. Vicky Y, okay.
And I am Nancy Albert.
Gladys?
Yes.
Hello, hello.
Hi.
And Lamsi, how do you say your name?
Alvis. Alvis. Lamseue.
A little bit louder. I'm sorry. Just
Lamsi Alvis.
okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Good. All right. So you're all here and present. I think that we will go ahead to begin. And so, can you? Who's going to be doing the hosting of the sharing on their computer? Who's hosting it? Anybody? So from group 2, are one of you going to share the PowerPoint?
Okay, I'll be sharing.
Okay, Annie, thank you.
Share screen.
Okay, we have the picture and just need the sound.
Do you hear the sound? Can you hear the sound?
The sound, no. No.
And, maybe I share. Microsoft. This one. The song is playing now.
Does anyone else hear the sound? I'm not hearing it.
And how about this?
No. When you do the share screen, you notice there's one on the, there's one of the options is to share computer sound, right?
Share computer.
And it's
yeah.
up to the right, and then
Oh, I see. Yeah, I think now should be all right.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are Group 2, and in this...
very good. You got it. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. Good.
We have divided the text into 3 paragraphs. The first paragraph is from clause 1 to clause 5.
Did we lose something?
We have divided the text into...
I can't hear the sound too.
I can hear it.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are Group 2, and in
Just the picture now.
this presentation, we will be looking at abstract 2.
By the way, guys, don't, now you know sort of what I go through each week. There's always so many little things you need to attend to put it all together.
We have divided the text into 3...
Sorry, maybe I asked my groupmate to do it.
So far, Annie, what I do see is you have shown the slide, and then we can hear the audio. So I think it's close to being working, close to being all right.
I'm sorry, I can't hear. My computer have a problem and I can't hear
You
all
can't hear
sound,
it.
including the Zoom meeting and the PowerPoint. Maybe I.
Maybe can one of your other group mates try?
How about I ask my group mate to share it?
Yeah, let's try.
Good everyone. We are group 2. Could you hear the sound?
I can hear and can see the picture. I think we're all right.
Okay, then we can start.
Okay, good.
In this presentation, we will be looking at Abstract 2, which is on Matter and Meaning, the Two Realms of Human Experience by M.A.K. Halliday. This abstract here is our workload table. In this presentation, each of us is responsible for one item, and for the RST part, we work on it together. We have divided the text into 3 paragraphs. The first paragraph is from clause 1 to clause 5. And the second paragraph is from clause 6 to clause 8. And the final paragraph is from clause 9 to clause 10. So before looking at how the patterning of lexical grammar contributes to the cohesiveness and coherence of the text, we must first understand the context of the text. So an abstract is a description or a summary of a lengthy research report or an academic paper, which is factual and concise. There are 2 kinds of abstract writing. The first one is professional research writing for academic publications, and the second one is academic writing from students, including academic papers and research projects. So in this presentation, we are probably looking at the former one, which is professional research writing for academic publications. So abstract writings requires the writer to encapsulate a vast amount of information in a condensed text. So according to some research, it is estimated that the word count for regular abstracts should range from 200 to 250 words, while some allow the maximum word limit of 300 to 350 words. So that being said, in order to ensure that the information provided is an accurate and concise overview of the subject matter, we expect that an abstract should be categorized by nominalization spreading across the text. So, although it is found that compared to the register of scientific disciplines, nominalization is less common in the linguistic field. We believe that it is still be a considerably frequent feature in abstract writing. So after knowing a more general feature of an abstract, we may also look at the register of this abstract. Register is defined by Halliday and Hassan as variation according to use. There are 3 elements concerning the 3 meaning of language. Firstly is the field, and second one is tenor, and the third one is mode. By applying it to this context, the field of this abstract is about the formation of the SFL theory, is about how matter and meaning are realized through language system and how they interact to enable humans to construe experiences and connect themselves to the surroundings. And secondly, its tenor is to the target readers of the book. And those people may be interested in linguistics or even specialized in linguistics. So we expect that they may contain jargons and technical wordings about the field of linguistics. And finally, its mode is to present a big picture of what the subject matter is about in a given amount of words. So we've now all said about the situation of this abstract. So let's see how transitivity, the patterning of transitivity, contributes to the cohesiveness of the text.
Now, I would like to talk about the transitivity pattern of the abstract. To start with, let me have a brief introduction of what transitivity is. According to Halliday, reality is made up of processes of going on, happening, doing, sensing, meaning, being, and becoming. Each situation type is made up of three components: the process itself, participants in the process, and the circumstance associated with the process. The transitivity system is composed of 6 processes. They are material, mental, relational, behavioral, verbal, and existential processes. First, let's focus on the material process. More than 55% of the processes are material processes. This is the most frequently appeared process in the abstract. Here are some examples found in the abstract. They are relies on, makes, organize, and offer. Move on to the relational process. Nearly 35% of the processes are relational processes. This is the second most commonly used process in the abstract. Examples are is, means, expressed, and represent. For mental and existential processes, they seldom appear in the abstract. Only 2 mental verbs and 1 existential verb are found. Note that there are no behavioral and verbal processes in this abstract. Now, let's talk about the pattern of the 2 processes. By referring to the analysis table, we can see the material process has mainly appeared in clause 1 to 4. This type of process includes clauses of doing and happening. So you can see that verbs are all dynamo verbs. Clause 1 to 4 are talking about how matter and meaning are realized through language systems and how they interact to enable humans to construct experience. Material processes are applied to let the readers have a concept of how a language provides resources to us for talking experience of the world around us, communicating our attitudes towards and expectations of those with whom we are interacting. The relational process has mainly appeared in clause 5 to 7. This process is to serve to characterize and to identify. In clause 5 to 7, they are identifying what a language is. A language as being more than a semiotic system. It's also a system that makes meanings, a semogenic system.
They also talk about the powerhouse of a language is its lexical grammar. Many relational processes are found in these clauses to give readers a clear idea of what a language is and what is the strength of it. Now, I would like to draw your attention to if the patterning of transitivity fits our expectations. At first, we think that the abstract should mainly be linked by the relational verbs in a highly consonant sentence, as this abstract is mostly explaining ideas of a language system. But after finishing the analysis, I have noticed that there are more material processes than relational processes, which does not meet our expectation. The material words are applied to express how a language system functions. Therefore, the range of talking about the purpose of a language is more than that of the ideas of a language. Now, it's time for my groupmate to talk about the patterning of logical analysis.
Thank you, Chelsea. And now let's dive into the logical structure. Before we detail logical analysis, we expect to see a great number of hypotheses over paratheses, since this abstract is a crafted written text. However, when we finished our analysis, we noticed something interesting, which is the number of paratheses and hypotheses are actually quite close. Although there are more hypotheses than paratheses in general, we find out that hypothesis does not outclass the parathesis, and we wonder where do the parathetic structures occur and why there are so many of them. To answer the two questions, let's take a look at the logical analysis table. We can see that the parathetic structure mainly occur in paragraph 2, the main body, whereas hypothetic structures appear in paragraph 1 and 3, which are the introduction and the conclusion. And now let's start from the main body first. From clause 5a to 8a, we notice a repetition of verb choices. They are is, means, and expressed. They are relational processes and they form a pattern. As for the function of relational processes, they serve to characterize and to identify. With the relational processes, Halliday introduced his notion to the readers in this paragraph. As for the introduction, it is mainly formed by the hypothetic structures. If we step back a little bit, we can see a hierarchy structures of paragraph 1. It is comprised of 3 parts, and they are matter and meaning, process and meaning, and language and meaning. As for the conclusion, it is also comprised of 3 parts. The first part is language is the prototype of a semiotic system. The second part is theory, which is the systemic functional linguistic, represents the architecture of language. And the third part is linguistics. From the 2 pyramid graphs, we can see that several ideas are concisely packed into 2 to 5 compact sentences. Therefore, we deduce the reason why hypothetic structures were frequently used in the introduction, and the conclusion is that hypotheses allow writer to condense his thoughts, and these thoughts are familiar to the readers. On the other hand, we think that why the parathetic structure were frequently used in the main body is that parathesis allow the writer to simplify his notions. While these notions are unfamiliar to the readers, like the concepts of lexical grammar and semorganic power. Therefore, we can now answer the 2 questions. First, parathetic structures mainly occur in the main body of the abstract. And second, it is because the writer may want to convey his notions in a simple way by using simple structures, so as to accommodate the readers. This enables them to have a better grasp of the new notions.
After analyzing the logical structure of the text, let's move on to look at the mood and modality. Before we go deep into the mood and modality analysis, let's have a very brief recap. For both mood and modality, they carry the interpersonal function. Mood implies the speaker's roles in a certain discourse in order to enact social relationships. It is composed by a subject and a finite, and it can be categorized into declarative, interrogative, and imperative. For modality, it performs the speaker's attitudes or judgments in a speech event to show probability, usefulness, obligation, willingness, or ability. So when we look into the abstract, the clauses are all composed of declaratives formed by subjects preceding finites, with a congruent function of statement to provide information. Since the chief function of the abstract is to inform, by showing readers how matter and meaning are realized through language and the way they interact to construe human experiences, the writer chooses to declare information through pure statements to reach his audience. The approach of the analyzed text is in line with our expectation on writing an abstract, in which an informative abstract should mainly be composed of unmarked declaratives and highly condensed clauses, in order to explicitly and inactively exchange writers' intended meanings and information with readers. The writer acts as a role of the informant, while the readers are the roles of the informed. It works more like a one-way message giving, and the writer does not expect a response from readers. Therefore, plain statements are employed to deliver his message in the most direct way. To look at the modality of the text, only three modals are spotted. They are may in clause 4, can and should in clause 9. Since the text is in academic register, the use of modals is not likely in writer's delivery. The writer used the modals may and can in clauses 4 and 9 to indicate possibility when discussing his own interpretation to the relationships between meanings and processes in clause 4 and language and semiotic system in clause 9. As they are in academic context, the writer allows readers or scholars to have more than just one interpretation to his theory. The modal should, which signals obligation or expectation, is also used in clause 9. The writer expects the readers to accept his theory as a thick and rich one to give insights into other semiotic systems after reading his text.
Thank you, Elvis. I will now talk about the theme analysis of this abstract. Here is the table of theme analysis. I will first talk about choices of themes and then its thematic progression. First of all, let's look from the leftmost part, which is textual theme. We can see the textual theme in this abstract are all conjunctions like both and hence. We believe the writer would like to make use of conjunctions to connect his ideas in a cohesive way. As Gladys has mentioned in the beginning, that an abstract has the characteristics of being informative in a condensed text. The writer is trying to use conjunctions to conjoin his complex ideas in a shorter text length, so that conjunctions have helped him establish continuity between different ideas. Next, we observe that there is no interpersonal theme. Interpersonal themes are usually vocatives or modal actions. None of these has appeared in the text. This is no vocatives because this text doesn't address to a specific person. This abstract is not like a personal letter. It's for all readers of this book. At the same time, we can't find any modal actions here because an abstract is supposed to be factual and concise. Therefore, modal actions are not used here to avoid implying any personal opinions. Next, in terms of topical theme, we can observe that we've only encountered few pronouns. Out of 19 topical themes, pronouns only account for 3 occurrences, around 16%. Instead of pronouns, the writers tend to use more specialized terminology like semiotic power, human semiotic, or linguistics. This is nominalization, which is a common feature in academic writing. That can also explain why regional processes are quite frequent in this text. And let's move on to thematic progression. Let's look at paragraph 1 first. In clause 1b, a word of matter and a word of meaning is the new information. Is again mentioned at the beginning of clause 2, so it's linear progression as the new information in clause 1b becomes old information in clause 2. In clause 3a and clause 3c, the concept of matter and meaning has been further elaborated into sentences respectively, therefore is derived progression. Clause 6a and 6b at the beginning of paragraph 2 start with language and it, while it in clause 6b refers to a language in the preceding clause. If you remember, language has already appeared in paragraph 1, clause 5a. So a language in clause 6a can be further referred back to it. Therefore, this is continuous progression as the same theme repeats. While the word simultaneous system has been first introduced as the focus in clause 6c, this is again mentioned in clause 6d as the topical theme. So this is linear progression. At the last of paragraph 2, in clause 8d and 8e, the pronoun it is used to represent the theme, the grammar in clause 8d. So it's continuous progression. In the last paragraph, clause 9a is similar to the example we've seen. Language has already been mentioned in paragraph 1 and 2. The writer is establishing the topic of language throughout the whole abstract, therefore is derived progression. While I'm focusing on how a text is progressing based on theme and focus, I will let Gladys and Alphys talk about the interrelationships between every clause. Finally, we have come to the analysis of the RST. First, we can look at clause 1 to 4. Clause 1 to 4 talks about the two fundamental views where humans reside, which provide a ground for clause 5 to 10 to discuss how language systems recognize these two views. Likewise, clause 1 also sets the background for clause 2, and it prepares readers to understand better what the writer meant by matter and meaning. Following clause 1 and 2, clause 3 and 4 elaborates on how matter and meaning interact. And then we can go on to look at clause 5 to 8. We considered the relation between clause 5 and clause 6 to 8 as concession, although there is no explicit indication of such a relation by connectives such as although and but. As we can see in clause 6a, the writer doesn't deny the fact that language represents meaning, while he is more inclined to extending that language as a system of meaning on top of its representation of meaning. In the same regard, we think that clause 6a and clause 6b to d should be identified as the same type of relation. So looking at clause 6 and clause 7 to 8, the former one prepares the readers to recognize the following discussion about thinking dramatically by telling the readers that grammar is what makes language capable of performing its function. Both clause 7a and 8a sets a framework for readers to realize the writer's central idea of thinking about meaning means thinking grammatically. These two clauses restrict readers to receive and interpret the following information with a provided situation, and so it would be easier for them to agree with the following ideas that put forward by the writer.
The RC path of clause 9 leads us to the core message of the entire abstract, which is the reason why the writer creates a theory that accounts for the patterning of language. As we have found the main idea of the text, The previous clauses from 1 to 8 are paving ways, leading readers to accept the critical message of the text. The writer is intended to persuade readers to accept his theory as a strong and rich one to give insights into other semiotic systems. In the end, the writer ends with providing a summary, concluding that linguistics as a metaphor for theorizing meaning has the ability to construe itself into virtual reality, and it enables us to construct such a world by using it. This further reinforces the support of the writer's notion.
This is the end of our presentation, and here is our reference list. I'm sorry, Professor, you have muted your mic.
You see what I mean? There's so many little things you can unmute or unmute and so forth. Thank you for pointing that out, Gladys. Yes. I appreciated how at the bottom of the screen for each slide, you had the name of the person who was presenting on that topic. That was helpful. That's just a side point. I really liked the presentation. I liked the way you brought it in, introduced it, setting the frame and so forth. Of all the abstracts, I think you had one that was probably the most interesting because it was M.A.K. Halliday's own paper that appeared it was in the first issue of the journal. And he wrote this paper, and it's interesting to go and look then at the abstract. Chelsea, you talked about transitivity.
Yes.
And you noticed about the fact that it was a lot of doing. Can I ask who's the doer?
Sorry, Professor, I can't hear you well. Can you repeat?
Yeah. You talked about
question?
transitivity, and
Yes.
specifically, it's about a lot of doing, you noticed, right?
Yes.
So who is the doer?
According to our analysis table, the doer of this abstract is mainly about the language, grammar, and theory, because the abstract is trying to talk about what a language is. It means they are identified the language, and then it later talk about how a language can represent by a system. So I think mostly the do role of this abstract is mainly about language and grammar.
Excellent. Yes, exactly. And that's exactly the answer I was hoping for. It's Halliday's interest is in language and language as doing, the functions of language, right?
Yes.
Language serves a purpose. So it's not surprising then that it's largely about doing, and the doer as being language itself and the aspects of language, meaning and so forth. So no, that's very well presented and very well thought out. I like also, I think it's Annie, you talked about the logical.
Yes.
Annie, can you just briefly go back to tell us, I have no fault to make with it at all, and I was impressed with your pyramid structure. Can you go back to that?
Yeah, and this pyramid structure is, I'm trying to compare the introduction and the conclusion to the main body, because as I mentioned about, the main body is comprised of the parentheses, and we can see that the structure is more simple. And then since Holiday is conveying his new notion, the new notion I mean is to the reader. Since Holiday is conveying his new notion to the reader, and I think it may be the issue that he chose to use parathesis. And as for the introduction and the conclusion, I think since Gerda's mentioned before, the tender, the readers is maybe someone who is familiar in the linguistic fields, and how they may assume that they understand what is meaning, what is language, and he can make the introduction in a constant and a more compact way since he knew the reader can catch up what he is saying.
Mm-hmm.
And as for the conclusion, since Holiday explained his notion in the main body and now he can try to connect the introduction, that is meaning and matter, and now he's connecting those things to what he mentioned in the main body. And then, yeah, since anything he said in the conclusion is most of things he said in the conclusion is mentioned before. So I think it's the reason why he chose to use the hypothesis so that he can make the test more condensed, and then he can show the structure, he can show the pyramid structure. The green one is the orange one is representing the line A, and the yellow one is the line B, and the green one is 10A to D. We can see that Holidays is trying to show a deeper layer, several layer in the conclusion. Do I make myself clear?
Oh yes, and I appreciated the creativity and the initiative in terms of how to present it, how to discuss it, and I also liked how your team would introduce a question and then proceed to answer the question, and there was besides the analysis, which I thought was well done and well presented and so forth. I appreciated that there was, I felt that you put a lot of time into thinking about it and trying to understand why the text turned out the way it did, and made some very interesting observations related to your analysis. So well done. I appreciated the introduction about register and framing it and so forth. And it was overall it was a very well done presentation, and a lot of thought went into it clearly, and looking at not just the data, but you made observations from the data, and that's always what I feel is very important. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you to group 2, and we are, let's see, 1:03. We are near our time this time. We are supposed to have the next group at 1:15. We are still running about 10 minutes early. The next group is group 9. Group 9, are you all here? Let me get my list out first. See who is in group 9. In the meantime, group 9, if you could come online, that would be good. Group 9, are you here?
Hi.
Okay, so let's see. We have Crystal. And let's see. Is it Crystal?
Yes, I'm Crystal.
Okay, all right. Okay. And let's see. Who else is in your team?
This is Yu.
Yuja. Okay. Hello.
Hi.
And who else? Well, let's see.
Hi.
Wang Yi.
I am Veronica, and you can call me Eden.
Wang Yi, I don't see you.
Oh, can you see me now?
Okay. Wang Yilin, I
Yes.
see now. Okay, thank you. And let's see, who else? Seth? Hello? Seth Nation? Hello?
He said his connection got really unstable, so I think he may not be able to join us. But he should be here.
Hey, can I just ask then, Seth, if you are here, even if it's unstable for you to speak or use your microphone, whatever, indicate you're here with the chat, please. Can you do that? And in the meantime, Mary, are you here?
Yes. Can you hear me? Yeah.
So only one member that I would like to at least, if Seth is online, and I do see he's here online, then give me a response by, if not by the audio or video, then by the chat at least, please. Do any of your group mates, are you in touch with Seth now? Can you, let's see, is he, there, okay. All right, so at least I see that Seth is online. All right. Okay, are you guys ready to begin the presentation?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so Crystal, are you hosting it?
Yes.
Okay, Crystal, then let's go ahead. Let's start.
Okay.
Hi, we are group 9 and this is the distribution of work. We are analyzing abstract 9 and the genre of this abstract is academic writing, so we have some expectations. For example, we expect it to be carefully structured, like having more complex sentences or more embedded clauses.
Hello everyone, this is Katia. I did the class and the transitivity analysis. Now let me show you guys. First of all, to split the text into the clauses, the first principle is that where is a verb and where is a clause. And at this PowerPoint show, I highlighted all the verbs in abstract 9. For example, in sentence 1, there is only one verb present in sentence 1, and therefore there is only one clause in sentence 1. And in sentence 2, there are 3 verbs in this sentence. Although these verbs are not all main verbs, some are in the dependent sentence, like the takes, and some follows word to. Each of them can still represent a clause. So there are 3 clauses in sentence 2 in total. But there are something special in abstract 9, as the rule 2 shows. There are many brackets that follow a noun, and the content in the brackets are always to explain the noun. So when doing analyze, I make the content in the bracket as part of relative clause to explain the noun before the bracket, and they are all in blue font. For example, in clause 4D, field bracket, the kind of social interaction bracket was rewrote as a field which is the kind of social interaction. As this example shows, when I analyze this abstract, this rule also is applied in class 4F, 4G, and 6C, 6D, 6E, and 6G. In Rule 3, it shows a sentence structure that confused us a lot. For example, in sentence 4, something is viewed as a set of parameters: field, tenor, and mode. There is only one verb, willed, in this sentence. So at first, I thought that there is only one clause in this sentence. However, when my teammates doing the logical analysis, they needed the clauses be more specific. So what should we do? As the lecture 3's example, and the content after a colon should be put in another clause together. Therefore, in sentence 4 and 6, the result should be like this. After the clauses part, I also did the transitivity analysis. As we learned, process, participants, and the circumstance are the three factors to describe experimental content when we study ideational meaning. There is one thing that we need to pay attention to, is how to distinguish the process tab. When we're doing this, we have to ask three questions. What did X do? Or did X do to Y? The second one is, must initiator be human-like, having a sense of consciousness? And the third one is that, can the process project, like the main verb, can have that clauses? And the next two slides are the result of transitivity analyzing. Also, my teammates will introduce the logical structure of abstract 9.
So here's our table on the analysis of the logical aspect, and I will elaborate on them one by one in the coming slides. For logical analysis, we will evaluate from paratexts and hypotexts. Paratexts refers to clauses are parallel or symmetrical grammatically, while hypotexts refers to hierarchical clauses. There are four same subcategories, namely elaboration, extension, enhancement, and projection. It is found that abstract 9 tends to use complex sentences with paratexts. For the first sentence, it is the only simple sentence in the abstract. The reason behind may due to its function. It is used as an introduction of the whole paper, so the author may want to keep it concise. For sentence 2, clause C is used to enhance on phrase A, B as a whole, because clause C is about the method of carrying investigation, and clause B is used to elaborate on clause A by using relative clause. The term that signals that clause B is referring to clause A and elaborating on the study content. For sentence 3, although clause 3b is inserted in between two parts of clause 3a, it can be seen that clause 3b is used to define and elaborate on which several words the author is referring to. For sentence 4, it is more complex than before. Clause C to G is used to elaborate on clause AB, while both sets of clauses enjoy the same status grammatically. For clause set AB, clause B is used to elaborate on clause A on the effect. For clause C to G, from the diagram clause C is repeated for 3 times, and that is due to clause C is separated for 3 parts. Clause set DE, clause F, and clause G is used to elaborate on each parameter. For clause E, it is used to further elaborate on the occurrence of social interaction. For sentence 5, clause B extends from clause A by talking on how to focus on the parameter of tenor. For sentence 6, it is as complicated as sentence 4. Clause A and clause set B to G shares equal status. Clause B to G elaborates on the motifs mentioned in clause A. Again, clause 6b is repeated for quite a few times as highlighted in green. Clause C, clause D, clause set E, F, and clause G is used to elaborate on each motifs. For clause F, it is used to further elaborate on the effect of clause E. For rhetorical structure, the abstract can be separated into three sections, 2 sentences by 2 sentences. The first section is a brief introduction of the contents in the paper. The second section revolves about SFL. The third section is about lexical-grammatical realization of semantic motifs. Sentence 1 and Sentence 2 tell reader what to expect from the paper. Sentence 2 elaborates on Sentence 1 for the used resources in the paper. Sentence 3 to 6 mentions the key point in the paper. For Sentence 3 to 4, as aforementioned, it is about systemic functional linguistics, and Sentence 4 elaborates on the parameters of the configuration of conditions. Sentence 5 to 6 is a summary or a highlight of the paper. Sentence 6 is linked to Sentence 5 by elaborating on the lexical-grammatical realizations of three semantic motifs.
Hi guys, this is Veronica, and I will be analyzing the theme for these 5 paragraphs. So let's take a look at the first one. The theme of the first sentence is this paper. Then in the second sentence, it follows the theme progression. The new information now becomes the old one. So the second sentence starts with the word it. And then sentence 2b acts as the enhancement of 2a and used that as the textual theme. Sentence 2c worked as an enhancement of both 2a and 2b and used which as a textual theme and still had this paper as its topical theme. The third paragraph actually consists of a very long sentence. The theme is reports of the ends of 7 wars. Sentence B elaborates A with the textual theme in which and the topical theme Australia. The latter part of 3A worked as an elaboration for the former part and also the sentence B, but the theme remains the same. In paragraph 4, the theme is the configuration of conditions. 4b worked as the elaboration and started with the word that. That is also the textual theme. Together, sentence C from G are the elaboration of both A and B. Starting from 4C, it is a long sentence that elaborates A and B. There are 3 themes in total, which are field, tenor, and mode. And the rest of the sentences work as either elaboration or extension for these 3 themes. So 4b elaborates 4c, and it has the kind of social interaction as its topical theme. 4f elaborates 4c. It has the relationship of the participants as a topical theme. 4g elaborates 4c. It has the what part of language as the topical theme. As for paragraph 5, I started with the theme this paper. Later in the sentence, the writer mentioned about the parameter of tenor. This is the same progression, because the parameter of tenor was mentioned in the previous paragraph. Last but not least, for paragraph 6, the topical theme is these motifs. Again, it is another theme progression. The passage mentioned about the semantic motifs in paragraph 5, which is marked in blue. Then, from sentence 6b to 6g, they work as the elaboration for 6a. Sentence 6b has several topical themes, such as textual identification, mediation of news information, semantic intervention, and codal sharing. For the rest of the sentence, they either work as the elaboration or extension for 6b. Specifically, anything after realized by is the topical theme. And here's a picture of the theme analysis.
For the mood, we'll be looking at if the abstracts have declarative, interrogative, or imperative sentence. And we found out that the writing have many declarative sentences, as the genre of the writing is an academic writing, so there's many statements. There's no interrogative sentences as there are no questions in there, and no imperative sentences as it was not expressing a demand or giving instructions. The abstract is giving information about the paper. The mood structure means examining the presence or absence and the sequencing of the grammatical subjects and finite verbs. We find out that abstract 9 follows a basic structure, which was the subject in front of the finite verbs. Here's two examples from the abstract. One was clause 2a, where it was the subject and forms were the finite verbs, so it was right behind the subject. Clause 5a was, and many other clauses in the abstract also follow this structure. This shows that the sentences in the abstract is trying to make clear and strong statements.
As for sentence modality, it refers to the linguistic devices that indicate the degree to which an observation is possible, likely, or prohibited. These notions are commonly expressed by using modal auxiliaries. Modal auxiliaries are modal verbs, and here are some examples, such as should, could, would, will, can, and might. As for the sentence modality for our paragraph, I actually didn't find any modal verbs. So I think there are several reasons. The first is due to the genre of the writing. And the second one is that this paragraph is basically describing the facts. Because it is an abstract from an academic paper. Like everything tells in here is like proved and thus factual. They're talking about a fact. There's no need to show the uncertainty. So I guess that is probably the reason why the writer didn't use any modal verbs in here.
Hello everyone, this is Seth, and in this next section I'm going to give a brief overview of texture and architecture. So first, it's important to understand that texture is the intrasentential organization of a text, which is to say, it is at the clausal level. Two important things to look at for texture are cohesion, which is when the interpretation of a textual element depends on other textual elements, and fit to context, which consists of theme and the choices related to the flow of information in the text. Regarding cohesion, there are many different ways of looking at this, and I'll just cover a few. We have reference, for example, it in clause 2a, referring to this paper in the first clause. We have substitution with SFL, referring later in the text to systemic functional linguistics. There's conjunction with and we don't really have much else for conjunction, but here and is used for listing and linking. And as far as lexical cohesion goes, there's repetition of this paper, and realized by occurs a lot in C6. As far as fit to context goes, it's important to consider what type of text we have here, which is an abstract for an academic paper on a linguistics-related topic, and what our context is. So this paper is written about an analysis of Australian wartime reporting for about a 100-year period leading up to 2003, and it's part of a larger study. Now for our themes, looking at just thematic progression and the topical themes, you can see here for the former, there is a clear flow of broad to specific. So it starts with this paper, systemic functional linguistics, and it narrows down to parameters, which parameter, and the motifs. Now as far as topical theme goes, there is a similar pattern. It becomes more specific throughout the paper. It's roughly congruous to the thematic progression, although we do see a mention of this paper again, topically, later in the paper. Now, what is architecture? This is where we have the intersentential organization, which is organization above the clausal level, between sentences and so on. This is also known as rhetorical structure. In rhetorical structure, regions of a text are related to one another somehow, through relational compositions, as we'll see in the next slide. And a text should have unity, coherence, organization, and hierarchy, which we'll cover after that. Relational composition is another very broad realm where we can look at any given text in many different lights. So here, just a few quick examples. We have elaboration, which is, for example, analyzed using the framework of SNFL, and then it more specifically goes on to state how so, and mention of motifs, and then elaboration on what these motifs are in the following clause. We have background, so this paper forms part of a larger study. What does that study do? And then that is given as background for what happens in this paper specifically. As far as joint, we have this simple joint relationship between clauses using and in the end here. Finally, we have organization, unity, and hierarchy. So, as mentioned before, there is a clear progression of themes and ideas from broad to specific. As you can see under organization here, there is a sequence of ideas which begins with C1 and C2 essentially being top-level ideas, and C3 being top-level as well. But then from C3 on, we have continued elaboration and building upon previous ideas in more specificity. And this is where the hierarchical top-down structure comes in.
To conclude, this abstract fits the features of academic writing in the following 4 aspects. 1. For using passive voice, it is found that the frequency of using ED role is much higher than that of ER role. 2. For complexity, academic writing advocates nominalization. In the abstract, 5 out of 6 are complex sentences, and is rich in subordinate clauses. 3. For formality, no colloquial items or contractions are used. Statements instead of informal questions or imperatives are used in order to show professionalism. 4. For objectivity, no personal pronouns are found in abstract 9. For subject, the author used a topical theme or dummy subject it. And this is the end of our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm very interested to, it's quite a contrast, the previous abstract that we were looking at with Halliday's and this abstract, abstract 9. Now, can I get your feedback for your impression on, did you feel it was well written? And any one of you can speak up. So who will be first? You just
Yeah, I'm here. Can I ask, is that talking about our presentation or the abstract itself?
I'm talking about your presentation, and I'm interested in how your abstract 9.
Okay, I wanna say in the previous video, named How to Convince in a Page, it's talking about many ways to, like, we have to put a question and the answer in the abstract. And I think this abstract is using the most traditional way, the direct way to give the answer about what the abstract want to talking about. Although I think it's not fashion now, but I think it's still concise, direct enough, and it's easy for the readers to get the point what the paper is about.
Yeah, no, concise is the right word to use for this abstract. I mean, it packs a lot of information in
Yeah.
through sort of using parentheses a lot, and that I'm interested in how you think about then the abstract itself, because it seemed to me when I looked at this abstract like this person was really trying to pack in as much information as they possibly could by every time they describe something like in context of situation field, and then we get a brief description of field within parentheses, and tenor, the relation, and again like that. So each of these, it ends up packing so much information in. And I wondered, and then the last bit, it follows the same pattern with realized by, realized by, realized by, so that they, uh, how effective did you think that was? What did
Uh,
you?
I think it's a great writing. For example, I analyze the transitivity. I did the class part, and when I did that, when I analyzed that in the PowerPoint, I change them to like a field which is
I know, yeah,
yeah.
I noticed.
Yeah, but I think it's if I am a reader, and I think it's a little complex. If I use some brackets, I can get um, the I think the the main content the writer wanted to let us know.
Oh yeah, no. It's just that it comes across to me as maybe too dense, too much listing. This listing that, listing that. I didn't feel as like it's not like written out. It's like if I were to, I wouldn't give this abstract to a person and say it's a good example of how to write an abstract, because I feel it just took it used devices like what you can put in parentheses to condense the information into a format so that you were able to pack in as much information as you were available, right? But it's not, it's, I don't think necessarily useful to the reader to understand the text of what the person was writing. It was like they wanted me to know what's field, what's tenor, what's mode. If that was, and I don't know if that was, and then the last part also the same kind of realized by it just listing things out that to me did not seem as effective, and that's no criticism of your analysis. That's made it more difficult, I think, to analyze. uh, e- Comparing this, that's why I said comparing this with like the previous abstract, which was Halliday's, which he is more or less trying to explain everything. It's not, I didn't get the feeling that it was sort of, uh, I had a feeling in the previous one like it was explaining everything to me, but this I just felt was sort of using an abstract to try to pack in and condense everything. Usually you said the word concise, and yeah, sometimes we can be too concise. All right. But anyways, interesting to look at it. How did you feel in terms? Now I know Seth was doing the rhetorical, but from the standpoint of all of you, in the sense of looking at this paper, this abstract, did you feel it was easy to sort of see its structure? Wang Yilin, maybe I can ask you. Wang Yilin, what part did you do? I'm sorry. Can you tell me again?
I think I did the thematic analysis.
A bit louder. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I was doing thematic analysis, and I think for the modalities, I think, yeah, modalities and thematic analysis.
Yeah, the modality didn't have much to say. There's not much to say. Not your fault, not at all. Okay, yeah, that's helpful. Thank you for putting that up on the screen. But in terms of theme, that's more interesting. Do you feel that theme was used well? The way the writer used theme and the choices of theme, thematic progression?
I think that As for the theme, like in some paragraphs, for example, like 3 and 4, I think the theme is kind of like messed up. And for several times, I couldn't find out like which part it is referring to because it used like many brackets or so. So that is a little bit difficult for me to, do the analysis. Yeah.
Okay.
And also there's like one more stuff I want to talk about.
As for paragraph 5, I started with the theme.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, where was I? Modalities.
Yeah.
I think for the modalities, because the writer didn't use like any modal verbs, so I kind of like wonder what the tone of this abstract is. Is he trying to convince others? Is he trying to like tell others like whether this is true or false? It's very hard to tell. So I didn't like feel anything after I see this paragraph. So
no, I felt it was very reporting. It was like reporting on their findings. I didn't. And that's why there wasn't much like argument at all to put forward or anything. And it just that's why it was not as impressive an abstract. But that's again, it's something that you, by looking at the analysis, can identify. Oh, this is a good abstract, or this abstract is, maybe perhaps not as effective as it might be.
Yeah.
The other thing, who was doing transitivity?
Yeah, I think it's me.
Yuja. Okay, Yuja, let me pose you the question that was posed at the last group, and that was in Halliday's abstract. It was language that was the doer, right?
Yeah.
And in your analysis, who's the doer?
Oh. I think it's most is the paper.
Yeah, that's the point, and exactly you hit the nail on the head, so to speak. Yeah, it's in this case it's the paper. In the other, it was more or less the language, and it was you felt you were really getting into the subject matter, but here it's really the paper is what it's all about, and the paper is the doer, and so forth. Again, that is a very common way of writing an abstract, that you are writing it about it's about the paper rather than about the subject matter that you're really trying to speak to.
I think it seems like an introduction.
Yeah, and the nature of the topic, even of the paper itself, was it was reporting. It was doing an investigation and what were their findings and so forth. But I feel it may, I'm sure, pose some interesting challenges to your team in doing your analysis, giving all those parentheses, which when I see a parentheses, I tend to skip it. I don't know how you guys read, but when I read something and I get to a parentheses, I tend to sort of skip it and go on. And if you do that with this paper, there's not much left. All right. So, okay, very good though. Thank you for the teamwork. I'm sorry Seth had difficulty to get online, but thank you very much for your Seth, you're there. Hello.
I think so.
You're here. Yes, can see you, can hear you. Very good. So enjoyed your part of the presentation as well. Have you been able to follow any of our discussion afterwards?
For most after the first question, yes.
Okay, all right. Anything you want to add about the rhetorical?
I just wanted to comment that I was not very impressed.
I didn't get that. I didn't catch that. Sorry.
Might be pushing my luck. I just wanted to say that I wasn't very impressed with the structure of the abstract. When I was initially looking through it, I thought, this isn't so bad. But I remember distinctly when Group 5 presented last week, that was when I realized, oh, our abstract is not impressive. It lacked a good conclusion. There weren't these first then signals. Not to mention, of course, the parenthesis thing was very prevalent. So I wouldn't call it a bad abstract,
No.
but I reserve the right to call it good.
But it was it did indicate. I mean, there is a clear rhetorical structure in terms of the development of it. Introduces SFL, then it talks about SFL and so forth. There is a structure to it. It's just, I think, the strategy that they use to try to condense information using parentheses and repetition that was less effective. But that gives your team, each of you in your individual commentary, more to talk about in terms of the effectiveness of the abstract. And that's really where I want you to go in terms of your individual commentaries. But very good presentation. Again, even if the abstract is, we're trying to see how does the writing, how can we evaluate it? And in the individual commentary, you'll do more of the evaluation. But there will be, I think, quite a bit for you to say in your individual commentaries. So thank you for coming online, and thank you for your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
And let's see, we are now 1:40. We're still ahead of time, but can I see if you guys, everyone doesn't mind, I'm going to keep going. I'm not going to take a break. I think we might as well finish the presentations and not delay that. So if Group 1, are you present? Group 1. Let me get my list out. Group 1, can you show yourselves, please, and can we hear from you? This is Jiang Jai. Hello?
Hello, I'm here.
Okay, can you guys also, as I've asked the other groups, can you, if you have a camera, show yourself? Wang Jingyun. Okay, hello. Wang Jingyun, are you here? Fei, are you here? Bai Xiuting, I see you. Hello. Fei? Yes, okay, I see you. Hello. Say hello, guys. Let me know that you're, because there's a lot of space on the screen, okay? So let me know you're here and let me be able to hear your voices. Cheong Yao K.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Can I see you?
I can't turn on my camera somehow.
Oh, okay, all right. So we will let that be as long as you're present and can hear you. Good. All right, so have I covered everyone? Faye, did we get Faye? I'm sorry, Faye? Any of you know if Faye is here? Faye is here, so.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
There is a group member missing because she's feeling unwell. So there should be 4 of us out of 5.
Should be 5 of you, right?
Yeah, but one of our group members, she's not feeling well.
Who is that?
Ashley.
Xiong Yao K is here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oops.
His name?
And
he or she?
Be Huan Jin Yan.
Huang Jingyan.
Yeah, should be absent.
She will be absent.
Yeah.
Why?
She's feeling sick.
Okay, she should get in touch with me then.
According to her, she should have sent you an email for that.
And I won't follow it up with you. I'll just I'll follow it up with her. Okay. I'll look for that email and do that. Okay. And I'm sorry, did I see Faye or not? Yeah, Faye, there you are. Okay. All right, so are you guys ready to start? Who is going to be hosting it?
I'll be sharing my screen for the presentation.
Okay, thank you. So shall we go ahead then, please?
Just a minute. Okay. So you should be seeing my screen for the PowerPoint, right?
Your PowerPoint, yes.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Professor and fellow classmates. We are Group 1.
Hello? Yes? I don't hear any sound though. When you share the screen, did you click on the
and fellow classmates? We are Group 1. Is it okay?
Can we hear the sound? See if it's okay to hear the sound. I don't hear any.
Diana, this is the list of our group members and our respective responsibilities on the analysis. We will first have an introduction on the task.
Do you hear the sound?
Yes, yes, good. All good.
Yeah, that's good.
Can you start it over and then we'll start?
Yes. Good afternoon, Professor and fellow classmates. We are Group 1. I'm Fiona. This is the list of our group members and our respective responsibilities on the analysis. We will first have an introduction on the text and a grammatical analysis, and lastly a conclusion before the Q&A section. In the situation of an academic writing and as an abstract, we are expecting some of the common features at Toulouse State in 2019. We will later discuss the informativeness and key message of the text. The main idea of this abstract is to summarize the background of the Pragmatist project in a chronological way and gives the brief current situation. Well, first of all, we split the text into clauses. There is one paragraph of 8 sentences in the text. Sentences are split into clauses as shown on the screen. The subordinating clauses are in square brackets. The verbs are bold and underlined. The conjunctions are colored in red.
Then let's talk about the transitivity structure, including process, participant, and circumstance. For the process type, material process is highly used in the text, which has 33.75%, followed by relational process, which has 31.25%, and then is the verbal process, which has 18.75%. Material process is mainly used throughout the text, as the text mainly mentions the process of doing researches and giving evidences by the journal to prove the arguments. For example, in the process, drew, pursuing, refute, create, etc. Also, there is relational process observed from clause 4c to 8a,
which states outcomes affected by language, the themes of the journal, and the current status of the change, for example in the process, constitute, included, and B. Moreover, verbal process is mainly observed from clause 6d to 8c, as the text mentions about the content written in the journal, for example in the process, developed, and proposed. For the participants, the ER role, journal is mainly used as the subject. This is because in the abstract, the content includes the background of the journal, psychiatry, the journal's problems, and a brief statement of how the solution may solve the journal's problems, which the focus is mainly put on the journal, resulting in the high usage of journal as the participant ER role. For the circumstance, here are some examples observed in the test. In clause 1, for such outstanding social scientists is the cause, behalf, giving the additional information of who the major contributors of the journal are, shows the prominence of the journal. Then, in clause 3, on the pragmatic tradition, put after the process as the circumstance matter, shows what the contributors' focus were, that would be brought into the writer's criticism. After that, in clause 4a, in that tradition, is the location of circumstance. Using it as a circumstance at the beginning of the sentence is to bring forward the pragmatic tradition in the previous rime for further discuss. It is linear thematic progression which makes the text more coherent and facilitates the flow of text, contributing to the architecture. Besides, in this circumstance, that is used as a reference which makes the text cohesive, contributing to the texture. In clause 8a, with the added theoretical and methodological tools now at our disposal, is the circumstance, manner, means that is put at the beginning of the sentence to signal the change of stage of being present and having the added theoretical and methodological tools. Given the above circumstance, readers can predict the text that is going to mention the improvements will be brought to the journal in the following text, giving a fluent flow of information. When it comes to texture, cohesion of transitivity, Hassan 2015 suggests cohesion is a part of texture that works with how the following sentences are joined all together. There are lexical cohesion found in the text, such as repetition. The subject journal is repeated for 5 times, as well as the interdisciplinary for 2 times, and the process developed for 2 times. Also, there's meronymy. The major themes of articles is the meronym of journal. Also, there's synonym, like synthesis and integrated theory, which shares a similar meaning. At last, there's antonym, like pragmatic and theoretical. The words of the text are closely connected, contributing to the text cohesion, which is the texture of the text.
Now we will move to talk about the logical structure under the clause level. In this part, we will discuss how is simple structure versus complex structure and perithesis versus hypothesis in the abstract. For the clauses under the simple structure, they are usually the absolute clauses which consist of the circumstance and participant. In contrast, the complex clauses refer to the composition of 2 interdependent clauses that are in an identical hierarchy regarded on systemic functional linguistics. According to the theme table of the abstract, all the clauses in the abstract are in a simple structure. There is 1 simple clause without the embedding, and 7 of them are simple clauses with embedding, which occupy 12.5% and 87.5% respectively. According to the SFL, embedded clauses refer to the embedded defining clause, the positive clause, the subject clause, etc. Different clauses have their corresponding embeddings. For example, clauses recognizing the embedding in nominal groups as modifiers. They also recognize circumstances as embedded in clauses. For fact clauses, they will recognize the participant as the embedding in clauses. We have mentioned before that clauses recognizing the embedding in nominal groups as modifiers. Here are some examples of the embedding from the abstract. As you can see, the ones which are highlighted in blue are the nominal group, such as an interdisciplinary synthesis, language, social arrangement. The ones which are highlighted in yellow, like concerning personality, problems of living, and community mental health, shaping the development of personality and the interactions that constitute social life, influencing mental health, are the modifiers modifying the respective nominal groups. Here are some other examples on the embedding in the simple structure from the abstract. For C1b, C6c, and C8c, they are the embedded clauses that provide additional and non-essential information to modify the sentence. C1b provides additional information of the establishment of the interdisciplinary journal psychiatry. C6c provides additional information for the pursuing. C8c provides additional information on the source of the unfinished project. Here is an example showing the simple sentence which is without embedding from the abstract. As you can see, there is no subordinate clause. All we have in this sentence are the subject, the only verb phrase, and the object, and there is only one verb phrase in the sentence. It expresses only one situation. You may wonder why is it good to obtain a simple structure as a majority. There are several advantages to a simple structure. Firstly, simple sentences create tension. According to the examples shown on the right, when a simple sentence is finished, another simple sentence followed right after, creating tension and tight connection. Secondly, a simple structure shows clear aims and so as the meanings. For example, it is clear that the aim is C7A in C7. Thirdly, there is a higher frequency in a simple structure to propose a fact. Simple sentences usually provide the fact that include the simple SVO instead of using a lot of clauses to describe the actions or events, just like the C3 from the abstract. The readers can therefore more easy to understand. Among the several clauses in the abstract, there are more tend to be hypothetic. According to the logical table, hypothetic clauses occupy all the percentages. According to the logical table, there are 3 hypothetic elaborations and 1 hypothetic enhancement, which occupy 75% and 25% of the total respectively. Hypothetic elaborative clauses are regarded as the non-restrictive relative clauses explaining and describing a small part or even a whole primary clause. Here are some examples of the hypothetic elaborations. The one highlighted in yellow in the first example is the hypothetic elaboration under exemplification. It illustrates the primary clause the journal never developed in the integrative theory. Another example is from C8. The one which is highlighted in yellow is the hypothetic elaboration under the clarification, which particularizing the primary clause. According to Halliday and Madison, different possible ways can be used to achieve the enhancement of one clause to the meaning of another, such as by reference to time, place, manner, etc. There is an example of hypothetic enhancement from the abstract. It is a temporal enhancement. The non-finite clause while indicates the time reference of the two actions, showing that they are at the same time.
Hi everyone, I'm Naomi, and I'll be talking you through the logical structure of the text at an above clause level. Firstly, I'll be presenting to you the relations between clauses by visiting the rhetorical structure theory. After that, I'll talk about how does the construction help realize functions. So, here comes the relations between clauses with the help of the rhetorical structure theory. The first clause is the general description of the topic, the interdisciplinary journal psychiatry, that provides the readers with background, so the remaining clauses are comprehensible. For clauses 2 to 5, they are elaboration to expand content mentioned in the first clause, while among clauses 3 to 4, clause number 4 further elaborates what is in the pragmatic tradition in clause number 3. Moving on to clauses 6 to 7, instead of elaboration, there is an awareness of how the journal might be inadequate in some aspects. Therefore, To solve the problems addressed in clauses 6 to 7, the last clause suggests a solution for the inadequacy of the journal and mentions the advantage the solution could bring to the journal. As a result, the clauses of the abstract are closely related and connected with each other to contribute to the overall meaning of the text as a whole, forming the architecture of the text. Next, the structure of univariate construction is found among the clauses. According to Matheson, univariate construction means each new element is related to the previous, simply as the next link in a series or a chain. Simply put, clauses are syntagmatically organized in terms of interdependency. It is found in the text that the writer has been mentioning the topic of discussion, the journal, throughout the text, repeatedly for 7 times. The individual elements, namely clauses, have all the same functional relationship, which is to give further information about the topic, the journal, contributing to a univariate construction, and making the text explicitly coherent.
In the following part, I'd like to discuss the mood and modality of the abstract. Regarding the mood, abstract 1 is in a declarative mood. So what is declarative mood and how can we know it is in a declarative mood? A text with declarative mood essentially expresses statements of facts, making factual claims. The sentences typically have subject plus verb word order. Abstracts are usually in a declarative mood because it's a concise summary of an academic text, such as a journal article. The purposes of the abstract is to deliver your findings to the readers, therefore abstracts are mostly informative and fact-based. Refer to Abstract 1. It aims to give a brief introduction of the interdisciplinary journal, Psychiatry, and suggests the limitation of pragmatist project for the journal. Therefore, it's making factual claims and stating facts in the writing, which is declarative. When it comes to modality, we can only find one modal verb in the abstract. It says, we may be in the position to advance the unfinished project proposed by this journal. Because the statement is only the prediction of the writer, he is not 100% sure whether the theoretical and methodological tools will help to advance the unfinished project or not, though it has a chance to be true. Therefore here, the writer used a modal verb may to express possibility in his statement instead of saying, we are in the position to advance the unfinished project proposed by this journal, which sounds stronger and more firm in tone.
Let's move on to the theme structure of the text. First, we can observe that the journal as a theme occurred repeatedly in the study of clauses as a topical theme and as a displayed theme in clause 6. The founder of the journal, Sullivan, as a displaced theme is observed in clause 4. The other displaced theme is we in clause 8. If both displaced theme are displaced to the letter of the marked theme, these marked themes, which are circumstances here, are used to lay the ground and prepare for the message within the clause to probably take off, leading to a more fluent information flow. Therefore, these marked themes and displaced themes in the text increase the coherence of the text, contributing to the architecture of the text. On the left-hand side, continuous thematic progression is observed with the theme journal, which occurred repeatedly in half of the text. This continuity in the choice of theme gives continuity to the text and contributes to the coherence of the text. On the right-hand side, linear thematic progression, which the focus of clause 3 is a theme of clause 4, is also observed. The conjunction while here is a textual theme, connecting clause 5 and 6. Clause 5, with topical theme, major themes of articles in the journal, states what the journal has been developed before. Clause 6 is stating what has not yet been developed as an integrative theory, also introducing what will be discussed in the following article. This textual theme is the coherence among clauses and facilitates the architecture of the text. The focus of this text as an abstract is shown, thus this article will be completing the unfinished integrative theory.
Here comes the conclusion. For transitivity, the process type is mainly material and journal is the major participant. Besides, the circumstance gives additional information of the pragmatic tradition to show its shortcomings. For logical structure, the text is mainly simple and hypothetic with the predominance of elaboration observed that makes it an explicitly coherent piece of writing. For mood, the abstract is declarative to give statements. Lastly, for theme, the abstract focuses on journal, while linear and continuous thematic progression are found, contributing to the architecture. By analyzing the text from the aspects of transitivity, logical structure, mood, and theme, we have concluded that the text is well written, given the clear structure, unbiased, and scholarly tone, informativeness, and conciseness of the abstract.
Yeah, that's the end of our presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. There are a few slides that if you could go back to. There was, at the beginning, you were talking about simple versus complex clauses.
Simple versus complex. This one?
You had counted how many simple with embedding, simple without embedding, and complex.
This one?
Yeah. Why do you say there are no complex clauses?
Because we only find there's one clause in one sentence mainly, and we didn't notice there are more than because there's mainly embedded clause with.
But then later you go on to identify instances of hypotaxis, right? Wherever you have hypotaxis or parataxis, you have a complex clause. Complex clause means that you have expanded one clause with another clause. So later on, you do have a number of instances of hypotaxis, right? And that would then mean that you've got complex clauses. And another thing is, for example, in 1B, let's just take that first sentence. The interdisciplinary journal psychiatry, and then you have it interrupted with a clause. It's set off by commas. If you ever have clauses set off by commas, these aren't embedded clauses. These are related, and in this case, it is basically a non-defining relative clause, which was founded in 1938 by the psychiatrist Harry Stack Sullivan. So that clause itself also is it is inserted there. It is still a kind of hypotaxis. It is a kind of hypotactic elaboration. So there are complex clauses, and you go on to, for example, while pursuing the many dimensions of being human revealed by the different social sciences, comma. Well, that is a dependent clause. So you have complex clauses. So that's one thing that needs to be corrected. Then can you go to the RST analysis?
RST. Do you mean this one?
Yes. It's quite odd that your first sentence is repeated both under, I mean, both to the at the far left where it occurs in the sequence, because your RST mapping should reflect the sequence of those clauses. All right. So you can't have one and then is related by elaboration with 2 and 5, and then 1 again appears, now related by evaluation with 6 and 7. The RST analysis should follow what is the sequence. So you shouldn't have one appearing one place and then reappearing another place. That points to some problems with the way the rhetorical analysis has been done. The rhetorical analysis should not be too difficult to follow. The person who wrote this abstract, Charles Bazerman, I don't know if you looked him up at all when you did your analysis. He's really considered one of the leading scholars on what is academic writing, and basically looking at different genres and so forth. So of all people, his writing should be pretty good. And I know you said that at the end of your presentation, that the abstract is good, but there are a few problems with the presentation, the RST and the logical, largely in those areas where there was sort of some corrections would need to be made and rethought. Any comments from your analysis in terms of what did you think of the abstract? Joan Jai, can I ask you?
I think the abstract is well written because I think the theme is mainly informative because it's show a lot of participants, not like that journal is the participant, and it's also show the key message of the article because okay, and also I think the journal mentions mainly the general psychiatry's background and its problems and its etc. So it can alert the readers to keep on reading because it makes the article written by this writer. We can shows the value of the article by solving the problems of the journal psychiatry. So I think it tells the problem of the journal, which can alert the readers to keep on reading how the methodological tools can help solve the problems. So I think the journal is well written.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I do think that you can see, I see when I look at this one and I compare it with, for example, Abstract 2, Halliday's, I see in both of them that the writers of these abstracts really have very well developed ideas, and those well developed ideas come across in the abstract itself. It's not about this paper will say this and this paper will say this, say that. It's really the content of what's being expressed. One thing that I really was interested in what you presented was about how the number of circumstantial themes, the number of where you have theme and the number of where there's circumstances. They're framing it, right? Framing the what's going to be said, and that was quite interesting. I appreciated that you made that note. So, just a few things that I would, that you need to. You see, you caught the hypotaxis, and you notice that that's why that complex versus simple that just would need some correction, and the RST analysis that really does show some problem the way it was done. But other than that, the presentation is very good. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Group 1. Well, we are down to our last group, and that is Group 4. And let me get my list out so I know who is in Group 4. And can I ask those that are in Group 4 to appear, please? All right. So, Lam Yu Tong, I see you. Good. Yin Yun, I see you. Let's see. How do you pronounce the English name? Ines?
Yes.
Ines. Okay. And let's see. Two. There's Wing Man and Wing Yun, right? So Wing Man and Wing Yun. All right. So I keep those two separate. And Ma Hu Lam. Are you here? I don't see. I wish they would really order these alphabetically, the way they put the pictures and so forth. Otherwise, not so easy. Ma Hu Lam, I don't see. Is it a boy or girl?
She's a girl.
Girl, okay. And is she here? I don't see.
We can see her too.
And she doesn't seem to be in the list of participants. Did she mention anything to any of you as to not being here?
Oh no, she didn't mention that she will not attend the class.
All right, so in that case, we'll see. Maybe, hopefully, she will appear. If any of you are able to WhatsApp her or whatever and let her know to remind her to come, that would be helpful. Maybe she'll appear later. I hope she does. Are you guys ready to go ahead with your presentation?
Yes.
Okay, and who's going to be hosting the presentation?
I'm going to share the PowerPoint.
You will share the PowerPoint. Okay, that's what I mean.
Can you see the PowerPoint?
I can see the PowerPoint fine. All we need to know now is if the sound works.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are Group 4.
Can you hear the sound?
It hears, yeah. Okay, you got everything.
So, shall we start?
Yes. Let's go ahead. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are Group 4, and today we are going to talk about the analysis of abstract form, which is from bodily co-regulation to language and thinking, which is written by Stephen J. Coley.
For class analysis, after examining the abstracts, from bodily co-regulation to language and thinking, it's discovered that there are 19 clauses in the 17-sentence text and averagely 2 to 3 clauses in a long sentence. I'll now pass on to my groupmates to discuss transitivity analysis.
Thank you. And let's move on to the part of transitivity analysis. This part is going to talk about the word choice by the writer, and it includes 3 parts. That is, what kinds of processes typically occur, who is the essential, and who is the affected. Also, we will present an analysis of the circumstances in the text. For process type,
includes 6 classes that are materials, mental, verbal, behavioral, existential, and relational. After analysis, we found that the rate of using material types is the highest, and the participants mostly use other than I, you, we pronouns. So, that is the analysis table about transitivity. First, let me talk about the circumstances in this test. The circumstances is about the situation and the environment of this sentence. For example, in 2b, to body co-regulation, and 18 in the form of coaction. The second part is about process type. After analysis, we categorize the task into 4 kinds of process types. First is about doing with 19 words, like trace to expand can shape. Next is sensing with 13 words, like to hear, poses. The third is being and with 5 words, like the word is and where. The last process type is verbal, and it only includes one phrase, that is said and think. If you remember what I said before, process type is totally in 6 kinds. However, there's only appeared at the above 4 types and without any behavioral and existential process type, such as some behaving, sleeping, and existing words. Besides the participants are vital to the test, we can use the ER rule to describe it. I found that it did not apply to you in this test, so I used he or she to be one of the participants. Also, in doing process type, we can find that some participants are non-human, which may affect some people. So, in the ER roles, it contains 50% of doing with 11 words, and 5% is saying only with 1 word. First, look at what we found to form the number here. Only 45% of doing is done by I, he or she, and we. Only a part of the test is doing. And even I take a look at all the process type, only 27% are done by I, he or she, and we or they. It means other figured out the majority of the test. We can also look for the type of ER roles and it most in people type and seldom in non-human types. And letters are still the kinds included most. However, in ED roles about who is affected, like constructions, solution, and the problem. So we can see that the test background is focused on people around 15, and only 5 are focused on others.
To move on, let's talk about the logical structure of the text. In the overall aspect, the structure of this text is not really complex. In other words, this text does not involve a lot of complex sentences and clauses. But still, the text includes sentences with hypotactic and paratactic strategies. First of all, to talk about hypotaxis. Hypotaxis usually involve the subordination of one clause to another, which means there are additional information related to the main clause. The text contains both enhancing and projecting of hypotaxis. The first 2 are showing the strategy of enhancing, while the third one is showing projection. For enhancing, let's take a look at the first one as an example. While Mauser traces language to coaction, Tomasello possesses a competence in decoding intentions. In this sentence, the word while, which is in the main clause, can be easily used to identify the sentence involved hypothetical strategy as the following dependent clause is used for embellishment or qualification. And then move on to the first sentence. The word that can show the projecting process. The dependent clause of the sentence project the main clause while Tomasello possesses through indirect speech. The text also included paratexts. Both sentence 1 and 2 used the extension strategy. The highlighted word "and" is the coordinate conjunction to join the separate two clauses together. Sentence 1 described the two actions done by two persons respectively, and the conjunction "and" is used to join them together to become one sentence. And in sentence 2, the elements for a baby to becoming a person were also linked by the coordinate conjunction "and".
So, this part is about logical level in terms of rhetorical structure, which will be divided into 5 parts: organization, unity and coherence, hierarchy, relational composition, and asymmetry of relations. For the organization, the author claims that the common flaw of Maslow's and Maslow's models is their negligence of real-time events and suggests a way to fill the gap. The author first briefly describes the approaches, compares them, and identifies their drawbacks. Moses fails to explain how children learn to hear words, while Maslow's fails to explain how concrete construction come to sustain description in terms of inner intentions. Secondly, in order to review the main purpose of the writing, the theme, how human body correlates to language and thinking, the author used were the problem of concrete construction resolved. Imagination will become crucial to the rise of thinking. Can we fill the gap? To draw attention and to present the author's idea, which is merging Love's idea, of which is identifying the first order language with online sign making and strength of the mentioned approaches. Semiosis can shape the organization of the text, logically helps to guide the audience through the text, which contributes to the consistency, readability, thus the unity and coherence. On the subject of hierarchy, there's no ordinal adverbs, like firstly, secondly, thirdly, to distinctly specify different parts, as the text is a short abstract. Nevertheless, with the contrast between ideas, viewers are able to go with the flow with ease, without additional guidance of ordinal adverbs. Moving on to relational composition, there are several examples to demonstrate asymmetrical relations. The first 3 clauses form the background, while the rest of the abstract elaborates. A conjunction occurs in the first clause. The key word is though. 1A concedes to 1C. There's a clause in the second clause. As to Maslow and Meltzer recognizing the statement above, they therefore have 2 approaches. And the fifth clause, clause 5A, concedes to 5B to E. In clause 6, 6D elaborates clause 6C. For clause 7, 7A and B concede to 7C, and 8A is a concession to 8B, while 8C elaborates 8B. For clause 9, 9A is a cause, which will result in 9B. For clause 10 is a rhetorical question to draw attention and persuade the audience. Clause 11A and B give more information regarding the gap mentioned clause before. Clause 12 justifies clause 11 and precisely indicates what the flaw is. Another clause in clause 14, with 14A being the factor and B is the result of A. Clause 15C elaborates 15B to give more information. Clause 16, 17, and 18 continue to elaborate the idea. Clause 19B and C justify 19A, while 19D and E elaborates 19C. For symmetrical relations, there's a sequence in the third clause. The author agrees with them, which results in a comparison. The author uses while in the fourth clause to contrast the two different approaches, clause 4a and b. The author uses clause 13 to contrast with the mentioned approaches.
Interrogative and imperative mood are less likely to appear in formal writing, as journal article is very informative with references. The majority of the clauses in this abstract are in declarative mood. They are written based on the findings and theories that are already analyzed by other experts, like Tomasello and Melzer in the second clause, as well as Love in clause 13. Also, authors' ideas are presented as statements with evidence supported. For example, the author uses the idea identified by Love in clause 13 as an evidence to introduce his new ideas and conclusion in clause 16a and 18. However, there is a clause which is positioned in the middle of the abstract carries interrogative mood. Interrogative mood usually occurs in question to express confusion. But if you look at clause 10, can we fill the gap? It seems that the author is not expecting a direct answer. It is a rhetorical question, functions as a means of introducing a new idea, and draws the reader's attention. As we can see, the writer is trying to address the issue of concrete construction before the question, and he explains how the view of the other experts contributes to his new ideas after raising the question. So when it comes to modality, it focuses on understanding the attitude of the author's view by observing modal verbs. Modal verbs are less likely to be seen in abstract, as it is not necessary to show the level of possibility when things have evidence to support. So there are only two examples of modal verb can to refer ability in clause 10 and clause 15b. Other stative verb phrases like fails to, offer no account of, in clause 5b and 6a also show high modality and high certainty of author's view.
To analyze the theme structure, we have four themes. The first one is the topical theme, which appears at the beginning of the clause and also contains the function of transitivity. The second one is the interpersonal theme, which can be modal adjuncts, vocatives, or finite. For the third theme, it is textual theme. It can be continuity, conjunctive adjuncts, or conjunction. To distinguish the conjunctive adjuncts and conjunction, the first one is flexible in position, whereas the second one is static in the position, which means it cannot be moved to another part of the sentence. The last one is displaced theme, which is a theme that replaced the original topical theme. I'm going to color the topical theme in red, the interpersonal theme in blue, the textual theme in pink. For the displaced theme, I'm going to color it in green. On this slide, we have topical theme and textual theme. For sentence 2, we think there are two clauses. So we put recognizing as the topical theme and Michael and Derek as another topical theme. For sentence 3, applauding is the first element of the clause, so it will be the topical theme. While though and while these two words are conjunctions, so they are the textual theme. For this slide, we have all four themes. We have interpersonal theme and sentence 10, which is the first element, can. And we have a displaced theme as sentence 9. It is a displaced theme because it is an inversion. The first clause is an inversion. The first element of the clause is were, and it becomes the topical theme. Therefore, the following elements will be the display theme since originally were is not at this position. On this slide, we have topical theme and textual theme. For textual theme, we have and, by contrast, and once. Since by contrast is together a conjunction, so these two words is a textual theme. For once, because it is not a topical theme, because it doesn't have the function of transitivity, and it is not an interpersonal theme and display theme. So we think it is a textual theme. And after once the word correlated, it has the function of transitivity, which is process. So we think that this is a topical theme. On this slide, we have display theme and topical theme. We have two display themes. First one is neural schema, and the second one is a baby. At the beginning of sentence 17 and sentence 19, the prepositional phrase is the topical theme. Because originally they're not at this position. In this sense, the original topical theme is being replaced by these prepositional phrases. So following after the display theme, which means the original topical theme become the display theme now. And these are my analysis. I'm going to pass it to my next groupmate.
Next, move on to the discussion of texture of the text. There are three aspects of texture. They are cohesion, theme, and given new information, which are do with how successive sentences integrated to form a whole, fit the context and the flow of information respectively. This text used various types of cohesion skills. In sentence 1, the I was referring to the writer himself, and there was referring to Mauser and Tomasello. The pronouns are references of cohesion, and there is a conjunction and to establish the relationship between two continuous clauses of the text. In number 2, the writer used reference again. The pronoun we in here is referring to all human beings. In sentence 3, the writer used the word both to substitute the previous sentence in the passage, which is Mauser separates action from biomechanics and Tomasello reduces language to convention. The theme of this text is how human body correlates to language and thinking. And there are also some examples of given new information from the text. In clause 2b, Tomasello and Mauser trace linguistic skills to bodily correlation is a new information. In the next sentence, applauding this, I contrast their mentalist and anti-mentalist approaches. The word this is referring to linguistic skills to bodily correlation in the previous sentence, so it shows there was old information. And in 7b, the highlighted word problem is stating how concrete constructions come sustained description in terms of intentions in the previous sentence.
So in the discussion part of the architecture, the text is being put together and how it builds. So we focus on the relationship between the parts in one clause. In architecture, we are mainly focusing on the coherence, and based on the rhetorical structure theory, the rhetorical structure theory helps clear to the listener The cosection is also applied for two parts linked together in the test. So based on our analysis, we found that rhetorical structure theory is a task as an organization, and it has five parts. That is organization, unity and coherence, hierarchy, relational composition, and asymmetry relations, draws the audience attention and present the author's idea. From our analysis, we have talked about this with the ordinal efforts, means that the text is not mainly divided into large or small parts. Also, the text is short text. That's the reason why all the text with the hierarchy structures. Again, RST tries to make the text to be finite sets. That is, all the elements stand related to others. Lastly, the asymmetry relations is the part that can explain how the authors combine the clauses. So in this test, asymmetrical is more than symmetrical. For example, in the most clauses are asymmetrical, and it has cosection, elaboration, rhetorical question, information, and comparisons. And there's only the fewer clauses in symmetrical by contrast. To conclude, the test used some complex sentence and applied asymmetrical relation with the audience function to recognize the situation presented and with positive regard. That is the end of our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you put together any RST mapping of the text? You know, the rhetorical structure theory, we map it out and draw out the relations and so forth. Did you do that?
Do you mean something like the timeline?
Yeah, something that shows the mapping of the RST. Did you guys do that?
I think our group didn't do this. Is it within the clause analysis part or rhetorical structure?
Yeah, but it's one really doesn't. I mean, that's the way to sort of be able to visualize the architecture is by looking at how those things are mapped together. So that, for example, when it was presented earlier that this clause relates to this clause by such and such, and this part to this part, when you just speak it out like that, it's difficult to get a grasp of what it is you're saying as far as what the relations are. Normally, we would do a rhetorical structure theory mapping. I'm surprised that none of you thought of doing that. Go back, if you would, to transitivity. If you have the slides. And can you go back to okay, can you go down to the you're listing out the Inez, you sound like you have a cold. You better take care of yourself.
Okay, thank you.
All right, there is now. Do you mind to enlarge I mean, show the slide?
So that is the analysis technique.
So yeah, that it's there, so I can refer to it here. I was surprised. Why 6B? As I was looking at it, why is concrete considered a process? What is the? Is it? What are you? Who did the transitivity? Okay, Lam Yutong, can you tell me why did you consider concrete? It's not a verb though, right? Is it the sentence he offers no account of how concrete constructions? It's an adjective. Concrete constructions. It's not a verb. And further on down, you took sort of a way of doing it like I did it for one of the texts where you showed who is the doer, I, you, we, and other. Yeah, in the ER role. You know, if when I look at this though, because at the time when I did the I, you, we, other, I was looking at particular text with Susan Rice and her commencement speech, and I was trying to show how she involves people and so forth, whether it was I, first person, second person, third person, and the other was sort of like anybody else other than people. But in this particular abstract, what would be really stand out to me, what stood out to me was the references, who are the main doers, if you look at this text.
I think
Sam, you told me I guess I'm talking to you, right? So who is the main who are the doers?
I think it's Tomaslow and
Yeah, those people, right? Melzer and Tomasello are mentioned quite a lot as what they did and so forth. So the interest here is not so much, it would be quite interesting to look at who is the doer in the sense of not just whether it's people versus things, but specifically other scholars like Tomasello and Melzer. They're repeated so often, and that would be an interesting point to notice. Versus I. I is not here it doesn't occur as much as Melzer and Tomasello and another person, Love. So I is not that frequent compared to other people. Seems other scholars are more prominent in terms of what is being said in this paper than even what I, the first person, the author, is actually saying. So when you do a table like this, when you do an analysis like this, not every time is the sort of you look at what you need to highlight. And here, I versus he versus she versus we, I mean, the pronouns themselves don't occur that frequently. It's people. And that would be more interesting. So you have to sort of adjust what it is you're identifying and what you're making a table for to fit with the nature of the text you're describing. The only thing I mentioned also further down when you do the analysis of theme, if it's a non-finite clause, you don't look for theme. There were some things when you highlighted it, for example, you'd have while as textual, and then the grammatical subject you wouldn't highlight. That was in 4A and 5A. Maybe that was just you left it out, but I do want to make the point, if you have a textual theme, it doesn't mean you don't have an ideational theme. Okay. All right, so thank you for your presentation. Thank you for those of you that are here, and anything that you would like to add to what you have already presented?
No more.
No more, okay. All right, well, Ines, go get well. And for the rest of you, thank you for being here, and thank you for your presentation. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And Lam Yutong, thank you for sharing your screen. Okay, we have come to the end of the presentations, and we've come to the end of class. So that's all for all for today. And Mahu Lam, yeah, I can see you. Hello. Thank you, and bye-bye. Bye-bye, everyone. See you next week.